Okay, so Ricardo, right?
Yep.
Okay, man. Well, welcome. I appreciate you reaching out. So I read your notes, and you were looking for a little bit of guidance. First of all, congratulations! You got your state license, Florida. Woo, woo, woo. I took the same test. Well, I took the test, the version probably 12 years ago. What it is now? Which one did you do? The Class A,
Uh,
the
I went with Class B.
went with Class B. Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of difference, especially if you're in residential. You won't even feel that. So
Yeah, I don't plan on doing bigger than 25 tons anyway.
yeah, and so you're on the west coast of Florida, Southwest.
Yep.
Uh, I always give advice against what I did, the opposite of what I did. I never researched my market to see where the right kind of customers were, the kind of customers that could afford the really good stuff, which is what I was into. And I got in a bad market, and I struck. Congratulations to you. That is a wonderful market, generally speaking, from what I know. At least it was back when I used to travel. Linux used to. I worked for Linux, and I used to go over there. But so I think
Today,
that's a really good market. Yeah, yeah, because that's half the battle right there is getting in front of the right people.
yep.
So
And Southwest Florida has some great people over here.
yeah, and it's a different mindset. I noticed that, and I think it's because no knock to my New Yorker listeners out there, but the New York mindset just kind of comes down I-95 and settles on the east side of Florida, and that Midwest mindset, those really nice, humble people from the Midwest comes down I-75 on the west side of Florida and tend to settle. It's a cultural difference. I was really surprised at east coast of Florida versus the west coast of Florida. It's weird, but they're really, really nice people. Not that they're any better or any worse. It's just a social difference, right? Yeah.
Yep. Very diverse over here in Naples, or the whole Southwest Florida itself.
Yeah. So you're actually in Naples?
Yeah, I'm actually in Naples,
Okay.
Florida.
Yeah, we used to go down to Marco Island and work out that way a little bit too. So Naples is really good. What area are you thinking about covering?
Primarily with Naples, Marco,
Yeah,
a little bit of Lee County,
yeah.
Bonita, Estero, and then there's a new area, a new market of Ave Maria.
Ave Maria. That's 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 an expression in Spanish. Well, it has. I think it's a Catholic expression. But the Colombians say Ave Maria pues or something like that. My wife's from Colombia. That's why I
Yeah,
picked up on
so
that.
that's the
Well,
newest
cool.
market.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, you mentioned that the license is coming, so you've passed, and so you're going to be launching. And you mentioned that your wife will probably be handling the phones and the books and everything else. So, what were you hoping to maybe get a little bit of a perspective on, or help on, or guidance, or just a second opinion?
Um,
Thank you.
so from watching your videos, I just don't want to be a company that fails. So I've been watching a lot of your videos, and you've been saying like, a lot of these companies, hard times are coming. And that's something I do know because, I told you I'm in the markets and I do see some hard times will be coming.
Yeah.
And I'm just want to be prepared to, that's why I feel like this is the best time to start a business when we're about to go in a recession.
Yeah.
So if my business could survive in the recession, then I can thrive that business. So like I said, I've been planning. Like I said, I'm a little lost, but like I said, I've been trying to based off the market, based off my skills, and like I said, AC is not going anywhere. So I want to grow this business. It's a family business.
Sure.
Look, look to hire my wife.
Yeah.
I've told you I'm already I have a little brother. He's already 21. He's been doing work with me for the last 2 or 3 years. I've been training him, and eventually
Nice.
I'm gonna have him and say, hey, I'm gonna even send him to education courses as well, continuing education, so he can get much better.
Mhm.
Um, I'm trying to get everything across because it's still the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I really wanted to learn from you is the sales because I like your brochures that you've been presenting
Hmm.
for the selling the systems, and I like that level one, level two of the service.
Hmm.
I was really intrigued in that, so that's why I wanted to call you to talk more about that and to see the pricing on that because I want to try that out.
Yeah. I think this is where most people get it wrong, and I love the fact that you picked up on that and how important that is. So what happens is, um, people are looking for ways to take advantage of the opportunities, and they're thinking in a very literal sense. And fundamentally, people make decisions based on that gut. They're processing the logic in their mind, but it's that gut feeling that makes them go, you know what, this is the right choice for me. And so that's why I'm harping hugely on having a strategy when you go in. And I think that's probably the first thing that I would encourage you to maybe let's talk about a little bit is a strategy where, yeah, you're going to have a lot of people that are doing heating and air, but have they really thought about where the opportunities are within the market and how you might be able to capitalize on that? Because I agree, I'm in the markets a little bit as well. I've actually pulled most of my cash, but not so much in crypto. I've kind of, maybe I'm crazy, but got a little bit over there, right? You know that. But anyway, we know what's coming. And at the time of this recording, there's a big Elon Musk Trump thing going back and forth,
Oh
which
yeah.
in my mind maybe theatrics because now they're talking another thing, which that's another rabbit hole. We don't want to go that direction. So there's certain things that are out of our control, and so what we need to do is adjust. And if you keep doing what you've always done, then you won't even get what you've always gotten because these things are changing. So having a strategy that appeals to the right kind of people is very powerful. So a really good brand. I'm not saying that you're in a position to go out and invest in something like this because not everybody is. You got to play the hand you're dealt. But fundamentally, it doesn't change the reality that certain things get people's attention.
Yep.
And so getting their attention is number one. Getting their interest is number two. And so that's where that strategy comes in. It's not just I get this all the time. Where should I advertise to get more business? And that's a good question. Where should I advertise? But the first question is, who am I trying to attract? And then the next question will be, well, where do they congregate so that when I advertise, those kind of people would see it? And then then the really important question is not just where do I advertise, but what do I say and how do I say it? And so what we've figured out is these are psychological times, we've always had that. The psychology of the game is more important than ever. And so, yeah, a good strategy is going to be really important. And then a good process. People will buy from somebody, it may be you. We'll say people buy from you based on that feeling, or they'll do anything based on that feeling. It's timing. And I usually give the example of my stepson. I had a little 7-year-old stepson that was a pistol man. He was da, 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 da. And one time he was funny. One time he says something and it just caught me. I'm laughing so hard. And at that instant, he said to me, "Can I get a skateboard?" Because he instinctively knew I got him in the right state. Now's the time to ask. So I never forgot about that. So when you're asking for reviews, it's all about the timing. When you're asking for the sale, you've built this thing up to a position where they're really feeling good about it, and that's about the timing. And the timing doesn't just happen; it's designed. And so all this fits together. But it starts with what you're saying, the strategy. If we're going into a recession, and I'm hearing that too, if I think we're already in one, we've been in one for a while, but we may be
Same
going
here.
into a depression, right?
That's what I feel.
But yeah, but who are we, right? We're not economic majors or anything, or masters, or we don't carry that type of insight, but we aren't dumb either. And so, with that said, how do we weather this? How do we position ourselves? And so, I agree 100%. What are you thinking up until now?
What am I thinking up until now? Well, as of right now, my plans are like I said, get the license. Soon as I get the license, then I've already been working with ChatGPT as far as branding, logo, and all of that. It's came up with. I love the logo came up with. Then I have to look to eventually build a website. website plus the SEO. Then I was gonna look to make a little page for the Facebook, the Instagram, step by step. Then after that, I've first thing I was gonna do, as soon as I get the license, I'm gonna go contact anybody I've ever done work with. And since I've done AC, I've been doing AC for 9 years, so I'm gonna go back 9 years in my messages. Hey, I got my license. Here's my business card. Here's my business phone number. I'm just gonna send it out,
Yeah.
just because I've done more work for more than 100 people just through my phone number, through text
Gotcha.
message.
Gotcha.
So I'm just gonna do that first and then just try to get some work. I know I have a property management guy I used to do work with.
Right.
I'm gonna go look to talk with him, try to
Right.
pick up some work there.
Right.
Uh, that's so far as my beginning plan
Okay.
to
So
get hard and going.
yeah, you said a lot, and yeah, you need some good fundamentals in place. Obviously, you got to have a license. You've got to have the tools of the trade. You've got to have a little inventory. You've got to be able to perform the work. Um, and obviously, we as you're a service technician background.
Yeah, I was a service. I started as a new because I remember I was an installer for a year, 2 years or whatever. Then I moved over to service
Okay.
for the last 7 years. Then
Oh yeah, you've got
the
plenty of
last
experience.
company I was at, they did have me try to go be a sales. He paid for
I can
over
see
like
that.
10,000 for me to go take sales class, and I
Yeah.
took the sales class through what's his name?
Joe
You
Crisara,
know his. He
Joe
used to own Genie, Air Genie.
Ear Genie. That rings a bell. I don't know everybody. I know Joe but he was doing mostly sales on the service side. Great guy.
Genie. I forgot his name. He
Weldon
owns
Long,
Cashback
Weldon
Mastermind.
Long does sales. Used to do sales training up there in
Cool.
Colorado Springs. Where did you go for the
Pete,
training?
I think his name is Pete Slade, Gene Slade.
Oh, Gene
You
Slade.
know
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah,
name.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We're
everyone knows
friends.
Gene.
I think he's in Florida too. We're friends on social media, but we never talk. We just
I
kind of
took his class
share the space.
though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think I share some customers with him, and the feedback that I get from his programs are generally really positive. So I don't know him personally, like I said, but we kind of know of each other. I think. Yeah, yeah.
So I have a little bit sales skills, but I primarily try to be. I'm a service first guy.
I love it.
I want to try to fix it up first.
I love it. Yeah, 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 yeah. And redefining that. Well, I'm jumping ahead of myself, but redefining what service is and what truly fixing a situation is going to be critical to your success financially. A lot of us just want to go in and save that customer money and take care of that one part. But later, as we learn these things, that may not been in the best interest of the customer long term, maybe short term. So, but you said so many things. I'm trying to think about. Okay, so you mentioned Chat GPT. Are you getting trained on proper prompting on that?
Yeah, I've watched some videos on that, and I've been using ChatGPT over a year. I don't have the basic version, and
Yeah,
there's someone I have learned that from on how to use ChatGPT, and it's actually a 20-year-old who showed me how to do it because he's building a program
love it.
for our county
Yeah,
for the permit to expedite the permitting process. And he said he already has over $1 million in funding for that program. And he said ChatGPT help him build it. And
yeah,
I talked with him. He showed me how to write and talk to ChatGPT. And ever since then, I've been killing it with ChatGPT.
gotcha.
ChatGPT even helped me create a trading indicator.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm working on some stuff as well. I'm taking multiple classes. I will say this, and this is my opinion on this is that if for a lot of the listeners or viewers or whatever you want to call it, they're going to make certain assumptions. That's why I was asking the questions that you did, that I just asked you. They're going to make the assumption that, hey, ChatGPT, make me a process for inventory for heating and air conditioning companies or something, so I can keep inventory. And it will do something, but it's only as good as the input. And
Yep,
what
that's
I'm
true.
seeing is you're if you don't have the insight, this is why it'll never, I'm not worried about it taking my job, right? Because it doesn't have experience, it doesn't have insight, it doesn't have the nuances, it doesn't see, like I was talking about the psychology and all these other things in the same way because it's not human. And so I actually do branding, so I know that people are going to go make their own logo, and they're going to they can even do a wrap and everything else from that. But I am confident that based on all of what I've learned up until now, although they'll have something that's visibly pleasant, it may not strike that inner chord at the subconscious level, not nearly to the same degree. And so I'm still offering that service to certain customers. Currently, I'm doing two brands with two companies, with all of the collateral to come with that. In other words, their websites, and so we're putting all this stuff together. But when you got more time than you do money, you got to do what you got to do. So my encouragement to you is do that, like what you're doing, of course, but make sure you got that strategy ironed out before you actually go with that final version. And the same is
Yeah.
true with your company name. Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I'm saying I definitely at the end I want to have it all professionally be done too as well. But at the beginning, I'm just, hey, I need to do this just to get the van up and going on the road, get some income coming in, and then
Yeah.
hey, we're gonna look to do everything else, all the other stuff professionally done.
And you just reminded me of something else. Okay, so you said you've had over 100 customers. You're going to let everybody know. Um, how, how do they perceive your work currently? Did they come to you because uh, why did they come to you? Did you give them a better price? Did you, what?
They came to me. So some I've noticed a lot of customers they see I'm a very honest. I give good pricing. I'm not the cheapest. I'm not the most expensive. But some about me that I've noticed that they love about me is just I'm just a very honest person, very talkable. And even at my last company I've worked at, they've
Yeah,
had so much customers call, "Hey, I want only
yeah,
RC to
yeah,
come to my
yeah,
house."
yeah.
And they
That's
even notice that too. If you notice that, then that means that that's a good technician. If they keep asking for one guy to come, they don't want no one else to come to their house.
well, unfortunately, consumers, and I'm pre-qualifying this. I'm not speaking specifically to you in your case because I'm seeing an exception in your case. But unfortunately, consumers, generally speaking, are drawn towards the personality and not the technical skill because that's how they interpret the quality of the work. If he's well spoken, if he's well presentable, and he's respectful, that filters down to the quality of the work. But you and I know that there's a lot of cases where people don't make good eye contact and they're not really good with customers, but they're really good on their equipment. And so
Mhm.
they may be wrong, but because perception is reality, it's important that they see that in you and the people that you send out to represent your company. And the fact that you already have that, that's going to put you way ahead. So congratulations on that. You definitely want to nurture that. You want that bond. There's two primary reasons that people are subconsciously triggered to move forward. And the number one, in a close second, number one is what they call the friendship trigger. In sales, they call that rapport, building rapport, making them like you and you relating to them. I can see you killing that all day long. The number two is the authority trigger. Wow, this person knows what they're talking about. And not necessarily because you use big words or anything else. There's other things. Maybe it's the tools that you bring in, the measurements that you make, and a measure of transparency is very helpful on that. But they say, wow, this person knows what they're doing. If you got both, you got something special, and most people don't. So
Mhm.
that's why when I build my processes, I'm trying to duplicate that so that the average personality person can have a similar effect. But there's no substitute for the real thing, and so congratulations on that. But I love that. So when you go into the business, are you going to just drop it right in the summer and go full time, or are you going to try to work, have another source of income while you're growing this thing?
As of right now, I don't work for nobody.
Okay,
I just strictly just work for myself. I just do little jobs here and there that comes in, and then like I said, once that license comes, I want to fully go full time.
beautiful, love it. So you definitely want to have a strategy in place to get that information out there. Word of mouth is very powerful, like you said. If you're doing a good job and you're taking care of people, you mentioned too about you like to service things. I share that philosophy. That's why I created what I call the consultative service call, where technicians actually sell more, but they're not even trying to sell. They're just really doing a good job and communicating in a certain way. So so I think that that is a reflection of your core values. Your people who really have high integrity and care for other people uh, can actually hurt themselves if their beliefs aren't clarified. So one of the biggest transitions is getting from a consumer mindset over into a business owner mindset. And we all have to make that transition because we were all consumers first. And so when you're
Yeah.
looking at it, what it costs you for a single pole 24-volt contactor at the supply house, and you know how much fuel it costs you and this, that, and the other, can you go over and say, I need $375 to install this in your house? And if you look at it from that perspective, and you do have integrity and you do care about other people, you're probably going to have a hard time doing that. So you're going to charge less. But when you understand your numbers and we actually assemble this stuff and you start to realize what it takes and what all has to be built into that price, then you start to have these aha moments, and then you're okay with that, and you know that it is fair. It is a fair rate if that's your numbers. I made up.
Yeah, that's why I gotta learn the most those numbers.
Yeah, because we all need that. And not only do you need that as the person that's owning the business, anybody who works for you needs that so that they can represent you and not say 377, here's your bill. You know, when I first changed to flat rate, because we used to be time and material. My business was up in the Carolinas. My technicians had a hard time with that. And I had to call a meeting, bring them all in, and we used an example. One of the guys had a church, and the blower motor was defective, and whatever the price was, I remember the technician saying, well, he said it was too high. I don't blame him. It was. And I knew. I mean, how do you sell something you don't believe in? So fortunately, I had just finished a financials class, and the teacher at the time was Ruth King. She's still in business today. She's phenomenal. And I went through on a grease board because we had a little training area out in the shop. And so there
Mhm.
was probably about 8 of us. We were good size back then. And so we went line item by line item by line item by line item, and we added everything up. And once we showed that what we were charging, that same technician says, we need to go up. We need to raise our prices, because he thought we weren't making enough, because I hadn't shared that we had markup in there on the parts as well. But he saw that we were just barely, above that number. And,
Yeah,
and it was phenomenal. Not only that guy, but everybody changed, and all of a sudden it started working. Right.
selling more.
Mindset is everything. Mindset is everything. So you get the financials mindset. You also have to change the mindset of your success. Inferiority complex. It's just me. That's a bigger company. They've been doing this for longer. They're worth that money. I'm not. So that's something that has to be overcome, because I
Yeah,
guarantee you they're going to charge top dollar if they pay you to go out there. So what's the difference? If you're working for them or you're working for somebody else, you're the representative. Yeah, you're the one that's in front. So that's an aspect of it. And then of course, having a healthy blend of confidence and humility. So as you're learning these things, you start to have success. You're going to start to get confident. I talk to people all the time today. I've been doing this for 25 years. I know what I'm doing. And I'm like, well, okay, why are you calling me? Why are you only making single digit net profit? Well, why are you struggling with it? Well, it's because, yeah, they have had that confidence, but if it tips over into arrogance, then your glass is full. You can't you can't,
yeah.
right?
I
So
know.
having that, go ahead.
No, I know about the older heads. It's just like hiring an older technician. Sometimes when you hire an older technician, you can't train them to change their ways, because they're going to come in, oh, I've been doing this for so many years. This way, there's no need to change. So I see that in the field working for companies too.
I got a story for you. So I've been working with a guy probably about 3 months now. He came to me because he was adding heating and air conditioning to his company. He already did. He's 6 years older than me. He's already done plumbing, septic systems, well systems, big tractor stuff, and he gets top dollar. So we started working together. This guy has a law degree, at least one engineering degree. I think he's at two. He was pre-med. He was going to be a doctor. He's a highly educated person.
That seemed like it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And highly experienced. And coming into his first customer, I'll tell you that story in a minute. Coming in his first customer, it was so successful. I was blown away. But before he did that, he came to me and said, Pete, I love your courses. How much for all of them? And I said, what do you mean all of them? And he said, I want everything. What do you charge me? And I said, well, I really don't have it packaged that way. He says, well, make me a deal. That's how we started our conversation. So we start meeting, and he's spitting out all that he went through. He did hours and hours of sitting in front of the monitor and this and that. And, I mean, this is hard to emulate. This is hard to duplicate for me to sit and commit that kind of time. But he would come to me, and he had this he's got more life experience than I do, but he knew that in this particular area, how to humble himself. So he kept coming up and said, well, I was thinking about doing this, and that. And I'm like, wait, devil's advocate. And we'd go through the scenarios. He go, you're right, coach. Go. He's like that. And so we're going through, we end up developing his brand, and he bought another company, and he's using them to help start a customer base, which is a really good idea. If you can get a hold of somebody on their way out, and you can get their phone number as you're coming in, and you negotiate a good deal, that really helps. Just we come back to that. But anyway, he went on his first sales call. He got basically, well, he did a proper assessment. He impressed the socks off of it. These were people who had two other heating contractors come out and give these, I don't know, $9,000, $12,000 quotes, and he's coming in at like 25, 28, something like that, and gets the job. Very first one. But he applied everything. He just got it. But what I was impressed by was he didn't know everything. I mean, he knew everything, but he didn't. He learned how to learn. I don't know how to describe it any better than that. But he took that aside. So when you're coming in and you're green, it's easy to be humble, right? But when you've had a measure of success, it becomes harder. And that's why a lot of these older companies, they're not going to make it. They're not going to make it beyond where they are. So that's part of another mindset, is to make sure that you temper that experience and confidence, because you're going to believe in yourself before you believe in what somebody else tells you. Yeah. And test it, try it, and not just once. Give it a true try. So anyway, that was an example there, and I was going to circle back to another thought, and I forgot it. But this is about you. I didn't mean to go down a tangent. Your leads are going to be really important. If you've measured what your cost per lead are in your advertising, it would look like this. So if I spent $1,000, and 5 people called me on $1,000 ad, that would be $2, $4, $6, $800, $1,000. It would cost me $200 per lead. And if my process wasn't so good, let's say I didn't have a really good phone answering, what would it cost me per customer? So 5 called me, 3 of them went away, and we left. So it would be $500 per customer, and that's expensive. And I think the average these days is over $300.
Yeah, that's what I used to hear. $300 for per customer lead.
And so before the recording, we mentioned a company in your market that had sold out to a private equity group. I said, or another
Condition Air. They're still here, but their hedge fund owns them now.
So they sold out. So big money's coming into our industry. They're going to out advertise you. They're going to get these prospects. So you have to create a special buzz. This is why you want a strategy. They can get heating and air from the big company. But if they want this specialty, they got to call you. Do you have a company name yet?
Yeah, it's gonna be RC Air Services. I've already had the LLC since 2021.
Okay. So you can incorporate under that. I would encourage you to go through the exercise of creating a name that means something to other people, to your customers, not just you. I started with an acronym name too. Mine was RTS, uh, Ramsey Technical Services. I thought that sounded cool, but you know, I was 20 nothing years old. I didn't. And ultimately, I ended up changing my name. But um, when you're creating an identity, you don't want that to be confusing. When I was a territory manager for Linux in the area that you're at, and I called on all these heating and air conditioning businesses. And I'm being lovingly blunt. I got all of these acronym companies' names confused. I couldn't remember. This is JR. This is KB. All these letters, and they all
Yeah.
had a clever reason. And I get it. I get it because I did it too. I'm not knocking, but experience has taught me later that if like the guy I was telling you about up in Wyoming, he's in Grizzly Bear area, the Yellowstone. He calls it, what do he call his company? The Repair Bear. Mascot, easy to remember. What does he do? He's a repair specialist. He's cool, right? Now I had a different name for him. I said, that's Yellowstone Park. What about Jellystone Park? Right? Yogi
Mm.
Bear. Call it Yogi Air. And he, oh no, I don't want to do that. So he was worried about Hanna Barbera and or maybe the younger generation not knowing who that is. And I get that. But memorability of your name, and then it epitomizing that thing that is special about you. If you can get that, that comes from your strategy. You're not just going to know that. You're not going to
Yeah.
go to the Waffle House and sit over on a napkin and fail to figure this out with just you and your wife over a cup of coffee. It takes work. So I would encourage you to do that work. ChatGPT is very helpful. You got to prompt it properly to start to get ideas. Look for opportunities in your market. What opportunities are there that are currently underserved? For high-end markets, are there certain style of homes that people don't like to work on? Harder work is more profitable for those who are willing to do it.
Yeah.
Like those low clearances, and you're coming in with these like high volume air systems, or what even specialties like we've got a guy I work with in Vegas, is Dr. Heat Pump. He can't compete against those big mega companies. He's got his small team, but he owns the heat pump section. He's the doctor. He's Dr. Heat Pump. And so that's another example. And there's tons of examples. But it really needs to be customized for your area.
My niche, see where I want to target.
Yeah. So when people, maybe that's a pain. So one of the things that we study are the values. What is your best customer's value? I like this. You better give it to them, right? And let them know they're going to get that. But then, I really don't like that when these companies are always trying to, every time they come out on a maintenance agreement, they're going to sell me something. I don't like that. I get where I don't even want a maintenance agreement anymore. If your competition is doing that, that's an opportunity, right? Um, maybe
Yeah,
you're,
a lot of my competition, they're becoming a lot of salesmen.
yes,
And even I was being asked to sell, so that's why I want to just go out and be out by myself.
yes. So if you were some type of a certified technician and you had um, home of the no selling allow service call, and I've thrown this out on the recordings a few times before. I don't think anybody's actually adopted that particular one, but some variation of that. Darn well that somebody's going to look at that and go, "Yeah, that I just want service. I don't want to be sold." Right?
Hmm.
But so now, how do you sell? Will you sell by being thorough? Here's my report. Checked everything from top to bottom. Here's what's broke today. Here are other critical observations that we made. Uh, this is not up to code. This is over here. This is over here. How would you like to proceed? And
Yeah, that's pretty much how I am. I give it to the customer and let the customer
love
decide
it.
what they want to do.
Love it.
I'm not the type to, hey, I think you need to get this, you need to get that. I'm not a pushy salesman. I'm just here to fix it. I'm gonna give you options. Hey, I recommend you get a UV light. I recommend you get a surge. It's beneficial, but if you don't want it, it's up to you. It's gonna break down. I'll be back here a year, 2 year later again to tell you why you should have it.
So when you start diving into your numbers, and you start to see how much gross profit do you actually have to build into these repairs, you'll start to realize that if all you do is repair, you're going to have to keep your overhead very low and you're going to have to stay very lean. And if you want to grow, the margins are in replacements.
Oh,
So,
I do replacements too. I
so
definitely do those.
that's good. Oh, that's awesome. But people get out of balance. And they just, like you said, they just want to sell, sell, sell. So striking that balance um, ensures you're financially balanced, because the way that we structure our pricing classes, for example, I built a tool, and it was based on an accountant. I didn't invent all this stuff, but we finished it. We not only consider what it costs you as a company to operate and to have those trucks out there on the road and make sure all the bills get paid. We have to consider the market value. What is somebody willing to pay for a service call versus a replacement? The margins are over in a replacement. So a lot of times our service rates are we're actually charging a little bit less so that we don't like run our customers off, but we make it back up in the replacements. So now you're under pressure to do a certain amount of replacements. So getting the pricing exactly right, we can get it exactly what it costs you for a service call and exactly what it costs you for a replacement. And we can dial that in.
I want to. I want to know about that plan. Is that I have to get that whole course pretty much to use that calculator and everything?
So I'll tell you how that started. Um, I'm working with the guys in coaching capacity, and we're putting all these processes together. I used to have up over here this whole process to achieve your greatness, and your greatness is not that you're better than anybody. It's just that you're doing such good work. How come people can't see how great it is, right? So how do you communicate that? And so that's why I got into the branding. I've hired really sharp artists, and but we have a strategy, and we're positioning, and we're thinking ahead. Most people don't see the value. Oh, that's a nice logo. I can make one on ChatGPT, and I'm not knocking what we just discussed, but I'm just saying the reality of it. If you took that strategy into ChatGPT, you could get a better result. So I went through all of that, and my customers kept having money problems, and I'm like, well, what are you charging? Well, I just charge what everybody else charges, or I call around, everybody's charging this, so I do too, or whatever. And I said, what's your overhead? What do you? And so their overhead was all mixed. Their accounting wasn't departmentalized, and by that it means when you make a sale, you don't just throw it in the sales department. You say, okay, what kind of sale is it? Well, it's a repair. Let's put that in the repair department. What about this sale? Well, it's a preventive maintenance. Let's put that in the maintenance department. What's the other sale? Equipment replacement. That's in the replacement department. So if we have these little departments, when I go to the parts house and buy a part, well, what do I apply this against? Well, it was repair. Let's put that in the repair department. So same thing with your equipment, same thing with your maintenance. So when you run your reports, you can see what your profits are by department. And you'll quickly see, man, I'm losing money in service. I'm not charging enough. That's the real measure. So that's called departmentalization. I'm going to shoot you a chart of accounts that was given to me years ago by Gary Ellick's, genius of the trade. I mean, he's retired now, but I think he's in the Cayman Islands, Grand Caymans. Go Gary. But anyway, he had this simple chart of accounts made for QuickBooks, and you can take those departments and apply those. And I throw that in that course. But what we do in the course is I took these guys through, and I said, let's take your numbers, let's bring them in. Let's separate fixed overhead with variable overhead. Let's pull out what's called COGS, cost of goods sold. That would be your equipment, all your parts, and things like your permits, or that crane, or even the labor that's in the field. Because if you put everything in the payroll, we need to separate. You can do that on accounting, but we need to separate that to figure your pricing. And so we just did a little tool, put the whole company in there, and we start moving the numbers around. And so we had these calculators.
Yeah.
Here's how you calculate a repair. Here's how you calculate a replacement. And then they were like, well, hey, Pete, can you calculate out a bunch of repairs for me? Because I'm having to do this every time. And I started looking at flat rate, a 7.5 microfarad, a 5 microfarad, right? And so
the common capacitors.
Yeah. And so I was like, man, doing all this work and all these repairs are within like $10 of each other. Does the customer really care? So that was when I came up with a level of service, because I figure, look, if it takes me an hour, I've got an hour invested in that. I don't care if the part is a set of wire nuts for less than $1, or a capacitor, contactor, relay, transformer, anything in this range. It's about the same price. And so what we did is said, if it's between $0 and $25, that is a level one. And then
Yeah.
the category is how long it takes. You could start at 45 minutes, an hour, whatever you start, 1 hour. And then that's the price. You choose it, boom, here you go. You say, well, that's a capacitor, that's a level one, category one. Boom. And so we built this whole thing out. But there's when I used to do flat rate, there was about 20 pages that we frequented all the time, because we did do that. So I had a very specific price for a refrigerant per pound, a very specific price for a generic condenser fan motor, right?
Mhm.
Or blower motor, or to replace an in warranty compressor, to replace an in warranty condenser coil, or just common stuff. So we went ahead and built the common stuff at the top, so you can actually flip to the book and say, here you go, right? Your numbers. So you're right. But everything else, we just go to the level of service instead of going to the calculator every time. You just look it up, boom, 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 here you go. And it's right, because your numbers are in there. So that's the way we did the repairs. And then on the replacements, they asked me the same thing. And we just do a whole price book for, good, better, best. And so we took that
I
to
love
a
that.
level.
I
Yeah, we
love
took that
that.
one to a whole other level. That was, I'm really excited about that one, because we've got some really clever stuff in there. But anyway, so what ended up happening is, it takes, when I'm working one-on-one, it takes between 2 and 3 meetings where we sit down for about 2 hours, and we pull your numbers out. We literally say, what are you paying for rent? Okay. On that rent, how much of that rent are we going to do we need to assign to the service department? Are you storing parts in there? What about equipment? Are you storing refrigerant? What about maintenance? Are you storing coil cleaner? So we divvy up the rent proportionally. And so if the rent mostly needs to be paying for the service, same thing with the person in the office. I'm paying a person in the office. What is he or she spending their time on? Mostly service calls, maybe maintenance, occasional maintenance. So they need to pay the majority of his or her salary. So we divvy that. We just go through, divvy it up. Next thing you know, we've got an idea what every department is costing us overhead wise. We don't miss anything. We actually put a little miscellaneous in there. And then we go into the fuel and the variables, like stuff like, going through tolls, through Alligator Alley, if you have to go over to the other side, parking and repairs. That's kind of a separate category than like that set monthly truck payment or something like that. So
Yeah.
so we break all that out. We got sheets. We predict. We set you a target for every month. Your pricing is based on this many service calls. If you get less, you're going to lose money. If you get more, you're going to make money. But you got to hit this number to get the bills paid. So we set quotas. That's the only way your pricing works. Because if you just give a price and you don't hold yourself accountable to how many of them you sell, you don't sell enough, you lose money. You sell a whole lot, you make money. And so you're trying to find that balance where,
Sure.
normal conditions, everything. When you get dialed in on that, you have good pricing. As long as you're getting the work. So it's a program. Like I said, it takes about 6 hours one-on-one. I've recorded it in workshops. I have it loaded as a you can go online and take the course and work at your own pace. But I've learned so much even since then. I think I did have 2 recordings on there from last year, and
Yeah.
we've added even more, like exporting into a CSV file so that you can upload all your pricing into House Call Pro. Got
Yeah,
it.
that's what I use, House Call
Right.
Pro.
Or you can do the same thing for QuickBooks, or like I'm doing, exporting a CSV file so that I can take and populate a price book. It's digital, that boom, 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 versus some things you want in a book, some things you want. So anyway, all that stuff is really important, but none of that matters if you're not getting the customers. And that's why I was talking about the branding, your greatness, your perceived greatness. What is your strategy? What is it that is going to make them call you? It may be because you're the lowest price right now because you don't have any overhead. And I'm not saying, if you're doing, you mentioned property management. That's a good strategy. It keeps the money moving, but
Yeah.
don't build a business on that. I had a buddy I worked with up in, I'm not going to say what state, up in the Northeast, and he built a business on home warranty companies. What's some of the ones?
Yep, I know exactly. American.
American Home Shield. Yeah, that's who I was thinking of. So, I mean, they've been around forever. When I was in business, they were around, and we tried them for a little bit, and it was just like working for nothing. So we let it go.
Yep, I
He built a
know.
he built a business on that, and he hired people, and his reputation wasn't good because you know when they get mad at the home warranty company, they're going to leave the bad review on your Google
Company,
reviews,
yeah.
right? And it wasn't his fault. You know, he was a good guy, but we couldn't get him off that dependency of that thing and get his own customers. You want your own customers. You want your own stable customers. Um, in my case, I use commercial refrigeration to give me stability. Then I built that residential department.
Hmm.
In other people's cases, they don't. Maybe they don't have that skill set, but maybe they have plumbing or they have something else. That's a good idea. In your case, you're in a prime market, basically one big long summer. You know, and then when it slows down, you know, what are you out changing strip heaters? You know, there's not a whole
Doing maintenances,
right,
wintertime maintenances, that's it.
right. And so unless you're upselling from that, there's the no word again. Um, if you hadn't made enough money, whatever you make during the summer, you're burning through during the off season. So this is all strategy, and it's not. There's no magic pill. Here, do this. Oh, we're all good now. So it's there's a lot to this, and you know, a lot of people just have to figure this thing out for themselves, and they just have to go through the pain. But
Yep.
then there's these old men, 66 years old, that has a world of knowledge, and they just call and get some help. And now this guy's leading the pack, um, out the gate. And it's, you know, I told him, I said, I don't even know if the word is right, but I'm so proud of you. You know, how am I proud of person older than me and more mature than me and has better experience than me? But you know, he's got the balance. He's got all the experience and everything else, but he's got the humility to know I don't know this. I'm going to follow a proven system here and do it. And he's doing really well. So that's one example. And of course, there's plenty of other examples of other methods. But one of the things you do want to be careful of is these gurus who basically, you too can build a business like I did, 40, 50, 60 million, whatever, just follow my proven thing. And
Yeah.
I would take that with a grain because maybe there's truth to that, but maybe they were in a different market than you are in. Maybe it was during a different time, during different economic situations, during, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And maybe had you started your business in that time, in that area, your success could have been much better too.
Times are
Um,
different.
I got a call from one of the big shots in the industry, an old guy. And if I said his name, anybody listening to this would know who it is if you know heating and air guys, because he's written books and stuff. And he said, Pete, the emperor has no clothes. And I said, referring to what? And he says, some of these gurus, they don't even know what they're talking about. They don't have the scars on their back that you and I do. And so there's a lot to be said where you're coming from. You can't buy that. Those private equity groups buying conditioned air and some of the other companies, and they'll get a lot right because they're businessmen, but they don't have the perspective that you do. And so you'll always be a thorn in their side. The question is, will you be a true competitor with them at the size that you're comfortable? I mean, it really doesn't matter how big your company gets. It matters what kind of a quality of life it brings you and your family at the end of the day. So, we got a little long winded on that, but, so let's
Sure did.
circle back around on the recording. Cause I know I want to talk to you offline a little bit too. What have we failed to cover at this point that you would like some insight on?
Um. Oh, so about the level of service, you said is that you said that was free on your platform or something?
Well, I've got it broken out as a separate product, but it's just right now I've got it set up as part of the price calculator. What happened
Yep.
was so I built it on a spreadsheet. Actually, my daughter built it. She's an engineer. She's way smarter than her old man. But it was like she was my chat GPT. I knew what had to be in there and she made it happen, if that makes sense. Right. So she
Yeah.
built, I said, hey, do it this way. She'd do it. And it's beautiful. But she couldn't have done it without me, and I couldn't have done it without her. That's how I see AI, by the way. And even the two of us are struggling with AI because now we're having to figure out how to automate, because we built the retail side or the visual side over in Canva so that people could have a free account and just make their own copies. But the integration of it and importing the data became impossible. I went out to private sources, and so now what do? We build software. So she's found new methods, and we're working on that. But it
Yep.
doesn't matter. Whether it's manual or not, it gets done. And I'll say this: a lot of people build processes based on what's convenient for what's easier for them. I build processes based on what makes the customer go, wow, that's what I want. And I don't care if you have to duplicate, triplicate, whatever the process to get that effect. That's what we want. So when we built the visual of that, is very strategically laid out so that the customer looks, and we know that the Z pattern of the eyes, it goes to the top left,
Yeah,
across the
they're gonna
top right,
look and
goes like a Z, goes down to the bottom left to the bottom right. And so we strategically lay stuff out with that in mind. Gary Vaynerchuk talked about that when he used to trade cards and stuff, and he would watch where the people would look. And so he started to position his merchandise on these little tables at the flea market or whatever he was doing back in the day. And he would get more sales, so this is all psychology.
did that help when you did that with the sales of the equipment with the good, better, best? Did that increase sales a lot when you started that?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you an example on that. Good, better, best is what we knew. Lennox got a hold of a study. I had worked for Lennox, and so I was privy to this study.
Yeah.
And the study was with Canon cameras. And so they had 3 cameras: a good, a better, and a best. The good camera way back then was like $80. The better camera was like 150. The best camera was like 400 and something. Over 50% of the purchases were the one in the middle. Over 50% of the purchases were the 100 and I think I said 150, $140 camera.
Yep.
Okay. Why? Most people don't want the cheapest. They don't consider themselves good enough for the very best. Other people want the cheapest. Other people want the very best. But most of the people are middle of the road. Now check this out. They took, first of all, they reversed the order so that it was best, better, good from left to right. But then they came up and they put another camera in there, and they put premium. So they had $1,000 camera that wasn't in there sitting beside the $450 camera, the $150 camera, and the $80 camera. And they presented it that way. And guess what happened? The sales changed.
Went to the $400 one now.
Well, over 50% were still in the 2 in the middle, but most of those were not the 150 anymore. Most of them were exactly what you said, the 450. So the psychology, that's why I have a 4-tier system. I understand there's 3-tier. I understand that's used all the time on the internet, but this is kind of a clever little thing, right? And so we position it that way. And when you lead with your premium, it answers the question in the back of their mind of how much. And if the first price that they see is your most expensive, there may be an initial shock or whatever insert your own word there. But as they go to the right, it gets less expensive and less expensive.
Yeah, they calm down, the emotions calm down and everything.
Well, but also we take away a little bit, we take away a little bit, we take a little bit more as they go down. And so there's a psychology in there. And so, I mean, we lay it out. It is what it is. So it's not like we're charging more and giving them the same thing or less. We're giving them more, but we just position it in a way that it flows, so that they there's less friction in their head or shock and all. It feels better. It feels more natural. And so one of the things I talked about, 2 of the triggers. the trigger of friendship, rapport. Remember, if you're really good
Yep.
with people, the friendship, the trigger of authority. If you're really really good, well, there's other triggers, and one of them is called contrast. And the contrast is this one's really expensive, this one's not so, but visibly, they're different sizes. They contrast each other. And what happens is people are creatures of habit. They recognize that from when they go get gasoline. Now they got the this 87 octane or the 91 or the right. And so I like the next to the best gas, or I like there's patterns out there in life. And so they can relate to that and they tend to go. That's why I say choose that second best tier really carefully because that's probably what you're going to sell most of. In the
Second tier.
the second of the best in a
I
tighter
had one
economy.
more. I was thinking of coming up with a 3-tier maintenance plan as well. Do you do
Yes,
that?
I love that. It's not being done right. I'm building a whole nother maintenance program, and I'll go into why later. But there's a lot of untapped money in maintenance.
Maintenance.
Well, it's being presented as a loss leader, 23
Yeah,
$25
see,
a month. You know,
my idea was like, say the first package is, you only get 5% discount and you utilize the no overtime, not overtime, no after hours charges. You get billed like a regular, normal hours. But then the second tier, you utilize the after hours charges, you get up to 10%, and then it also includes like a UV light and a air filter. And in the last package, I was talking with ChatGPT. It was like the last package should do once a year, a blower pull and clean, and like an in place coil clean that comes with it.
let me
I
let
don't.
me let me throw this in your mix. These are all great ideas, but you're thinking from a perspective of a professional, heating and air conditioning professional. Your consumer has one you do too. We all have one non-stop thought in the back of our brain that we don't even articulate. We don't even know we're asking it to ourselves. We're always asking ourselves the same thing. And that question is, what does this mean to me? So, okay, 5% off, but I don't even know what your prices are. So what is 5% to me? It's something I'm familiar with. Pull and clean. Well, I don't even know what a pull and clean is. So what does that mean to me? But when your benefits are something that I clearly get it for me. Um, every year I take care of my equipment, I get $200 of loyalty credits that I can use towards new equipment one day or a repair or whatever I want to use it.
Pat literally told me to put that on the best package too. The loyalty credit up to $50 or $100 per year, but they have to renew it. But literally, what you just said, ChatGPT told me I should do that too.
So well, and it remember it's pulling from proven data out there, so it's got a lot of that right. But a lot of what's out there and is the norm is not the best way to do it, and that's what I've been challenged. I remember we had a private group called ICE where I
Yep.
was working with other contractors, and we were talking about this, and we're like, there's all this opportunity to do this better, but because we've always done things that way, we think if we do things different, all of a sudden the customers will say no. Customers don't have any idea what our industry standards are, and you can come up with your own stuff and have a totally different reaction. It could be negative, but it could be positive. What I'm saying is, whenever they can see something and they instantly get what it means to me in a way that they understand, it has a better chance of having the impact that you're looking to give. So the psychology of developing these programs are crucial. And look, you're doing a great job. But you're not going to have all the answers. Okay, your time is spent. Your time needs to be spent doing what's most profitable for you, whether it's managing this organization that you've built or building it. And right now you're building it. So out there turning those wrenches are really important. Now you're going to need to take the time and do your own strategy and everything else because again, you're at that point where you have probably, I'm not speaking for you, more time than money. But at some point, it's going to go the other way. And then that's when you hire. Don't hire just anybody. You hire the best you can find at whatever. Bite the bullet and watch the returns come.
Reap the rewards.
SEO, it's all the same. SEO, social media marketing, internal social media employee that's going around and videoing your work and taking pictures and posts. There's people that do that now. They have a full-time employee or employees that all they do is capture and
videos and
bring the public into their world and build relationship.
Yeah, I plan to do that.
But yeah,
that should be about everything I have for all questions and everything.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about the rest online. Well, I appreciate you jumping on here and allowing me to record this and share this. And I'll drop your name in the description there so that I'll send you the link, everything else.
Yep.
But yeah, so the idea is to sit down and take a few minutes and hopefully, I mean, you're a smart guy. You know what you're going to do. But hopefully just by taking a little bit of somebody else's perspective and blending in, it gives you even a greater understanding so that you're even that much better as a result. And so that's what these little meetings are designed to do. And for those of you watching, I'm limited on the certain time because I do other things, but there's always some windows where you can come on in. We'll talk about it a little bit and see, hopefully how we can help you create a strategy or at least get you on the right path. Cool. So I'm going to end the recording here. Thank you. And I'll talk to you right after the recording.